Hello everyone, this is Wolfe. Sure, the stream's catching up. Oh, I haven't streamed Space Engineers yet in a while. There we go. Whoa. I'm on the planet's surface. Not expecting this. Oh well. Look at the terrain though. They actually did a good job on that. Oh. So at the moment I'm just trying to get off the planet's surface. There we go. Now I'm in spectator mode. Come on, scroll. There we go. Don't know exactly where my character is, but that's okay. I believe it's Shift F. It's been a little while. Oh, that's not it. Control spacebar, isn't it? Oh, back to... There we go. Yep. Alright, I'm in space now. So... no planetary gravity. Let's start building on that asteroid over there. So, thank you for tuning in today. Right now... Let's get rid of that. Turn GoodBot off, actually. Can't believe I left it on. Off. Alright. So today I'm going to be starting a little bit of a ship design process for what I hope to eventually turn into a larger fleet. So, yeah, the sun's over there. So this is just the empty solar, or not the empty solar world, this is just the solar system. So we've got the Earth-like planet, we've got its moon, that should be Mars, down there is the alien planet. There should be another one hanging around somewhere. So, but this is just the standard solar system, there's nothing special or modded in here. So, welcome to Space Engineers, and the absolute gargantuanness that is Space Engineers. So I am probably about 120 kilometers away from the Earth-like planet. At least as far, if not a little bit farther from the moon, probably closer to 200 kilometers. Mars is nearly 1,000 kilometers away, and the alien planet is several thousand kilometers away. So both of them have moons as well. So, was going to start here on this asteroid here. Now, for the sake of making everything a little bit easier, I remember how to rotate these. Well, that's just the faces. Oh, that didn't do what I wanted to do either. Alright, well, I'm just gonna pick a random face then. Yep, alright, it's been a while. Let's turn mirroring off. Okay, that is actually kind of loud, so let me turn that down a little bit. Overall sound volume, there. Up the music a little bit so we can listen to that. Alright. To start with, I'm just going to do a simple pillar. Something really simple to anchor off of this asteroid with. That's it. Ooh. Some of the asteroid generation is just so cool. Love these tunnels. They're perfect to put little bases in or hide your ship from a pirate. Alright. To start with, we're going to actually continue extending this because it's to go even further. There we go, that's plenty. Start with, we're going to build a platform. And on this platform, pretty much we're just going to have a bunch of different designs that are being built on it. There we go. And another one. This is, oh, dang it, I hit the wrong button. The only downside to using the large plain block placement in this game is it is really finicky with the amount of movement options available to you. So, to finish this off, we're going to put a reactor, power the grid, so we don't have to worry about it. And I'm also going to put a beacon. Change the width. Oh, I'm just blind. So let's go in here, let's rename the beacon to be projected as shipyard. See, it now says shipyard. Fortunately, beacons produce light, but that's unavoidable. So I have asteroids turned off, I have hostile mobs turned off. Ah, there's the other planet I was thinking of. All the way over there. Dang. So. Alright. Now, the basics of any ship, when in Space Engineers, are that you need a form of propulsion, you need a form of power, and you need a method to control it, and the real associated systems for that control to work. Everything else beyond that point is very, very much unnecessary. So, using this, technically speaking, that's a ship. It's not a ship that you would want to fly, because the moment you pulse the thrusters, it becomes a missile. Okay? But it still technically is a ship. That was cool, huh? Oddly enough, though, it is possible to create designs like that in any capacity that you want, with any level of control factors you want. So that's one of the things that makes Space Engineers such a good game, is the ability to customize things however you see fit. With that said, however, today's design is going to be quite a bit bigger than that relatively small 4-block missile ship. Okay? To design it, I'm going to need... I've got light armor and heavy armor variants right here. I'm going to swap out... Wrong button. I'm going to swap out the heavy armor for the moment for more light armor. So that way I have a few more options to work with. So I'm going to put the different light armor pieces in there that I use. The light armor panels, I'm really looking forward to using these. We're also going to need our conveyor system, which should be... I'm probably looking at right over it and not seeing it. Which that's okay. I will realize that I'm literally looking right at it right there and be fine. Okay. Let's clear those out, because to power this thing, we're going to need reactors. Okay? So, let's put a small reactor in there. That'll give me the variants of the reactor for that. And I've already got the hydrogen thruster in there. I've got the conveyor. The last thing I need... Ooh, industrial large hydrogen thruster. I'll play around with those. I haven't been on in a while, so. The last thing that we're going to need is fuel storage, which is right here. So O2hd Generator will be used to produce it, and the oxygen tank. Yeah, there's the hydrogen tank. Oxygen tank, industrial hydrogen tank, small hydrogen tank. Yeah. Can I get the industrial thruster? No, it's just large and small thruster. Oh well. So, to begin with, we're going to need to decide what this ship is for. So, I'm going to be building a much larger ship than that small thing right there, but I still don't want it to be gargantuan. Now, I've built ships in Space Engineers that were a kilometer more long. Those ships are massive. To put that in perspective, okay, this cube in front of me is 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters, okay? So to make a kilometer long ship, I need 400 of these. Let's see what that looks like. Alright, that's 100. That's another 100. Looking right into the sun as I do this. Alright. That's 300 blocks. And 400. That's 400 blocks long. That is 1 kilometer long. Okay? If I am at the very end of this, the beacon should be just over a kilometer away. Because it's not in a straight line from this. So, last block, 1.01 kilometers. This is huge. Space engineers can't exactly handle something this large. It is really, really, really difficult. So, let's just select the whole thing and wipe out that one extremely long girder. So, I think today's ship, while it's going to be a big one, isn't going to be nearly that long. Let's start with... There's one thing I didn't grab when I was in here, and that's landing gear. Landing gear will differentiate the grids, otherwise they'll end up being anchored together and could be weird. Nope, not what I wanted. Other way, please. Alright, so when you have a landing gear and it's green, that means it's locked on, which means that it is itself starting a new grid, but it's anchored magnetically to this platform. Now, why did I do the platform? Mostly so I have something in order to just play around off of. So, let's go back and replace the light armor plating here. Got a couple different variations of this. This could be kind of cool to work with. Oh yeah, I'm looking for it. It's like glass, but it's armored. Okay, enough marveling with the designs that are here. So, I'm going to make this up here the uppermost, the lowermost edge of the ship. Okay? So right now, in terms of length, it's 1 block, because I'm not counting any of this. Just 1 block. I think I'm going to go this way about 40 blocks. And the number's white on the glare of the sun. Alright, so we're 41 blocks long. This is actually already an impressive size ship. In survival, the resources this would take to build would be pretty substantial. And it's just a length of metal right now. But once you add other things in there, yeah, it'll be quite a lot. And then I'm going to go this way, 110. And as you can see, I'm not exactly perfectly aligned in a straight line with that grid, which is fine. Oops. Alright. 100. 110. That means that this is exactly 151 blocks long. Okay? This is a good size of ship. You can do a lot in a platform this size. Now, that's a term I'm going to use quite a few times here. Please don't feel like I'm saying it just to confuse anything. In design, or in any functional design, platform is simply a means of identifying that it's going to have a predefined purpose. So in this case, this is going to be a platform for a command ship. Okay. Now there's several different varieties of command ship. The one that this is going to fall into is probably going to be a theater command ship. Now, why does that make any difference at all? Well, two things, and they are important to remember, okay? Number one, let's do that. Two things. Number one, a theater command ship isn't a frontline battleship. It isn't a ship that is in the front, in the thick of things, duking it out with a bunch of other ships. It's the ship sending in support to those ships that are doing that. So this is going to be more like a command carrier in terms of design. So I'm going to add mirroring off of this one block. So if I place a block on this side, it'll mirror it on that side, which will save me the effort of having to do what I just did a few minutes ago, or a few moments ago. Regardless, though, we now have the keel, so to speak, of our design. And this is only going to be, what I'm designing right now, will only be the structural elements. Yes, Space Engineers doesn't have an aspect of structural integrity, but it does help to build your structural elements so you have an idea of what everything will look like. So, with that said, I'm going to count probably 8 blocks. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the 9th block, I'm going to place that. So, this is going to be where the first of our bank of thrusters goes. So let's place that. And you can see right here, if I were, oops, wrong click. I'm too used to Minecraft. I keep pressing the wrong mouse button. So I'm just gonna go ahead and skip past this point. All right. You can see how I placed this with a back set. There's a reason for that. You can put in this space armor blocks and leave the main block full as well as the perimeter blocks, and it won't damage it. But that will shroud your thruster. This is really quite important for a combat ship. While this ship isn't meant to go into combat, it still has the capability to do so and to hold its own. With that in mind, many of the aspects of its design will need to have that necessity built into it. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and place a couple more thrusters, because otherwise this ship ain't going to be moving very quickly. I think 4 thrusters on either side and the main banks in the back will be enough. We can then augment this with, and the ship will have wings that will have more of these large thrusters in them. Now these are only large hydrogen thrusters. They aren't the greatest thrusters, okay? They take fuel. They take a lot of fuel. Sure, they produce a great deal of thrust, but these are very powerful thrusters to move a very large ship. 8 of them here could give most ships a decent boost. But to make sure that this whole thing is functionally capable of operating, we need to make sure that not only will these not shut off even when damaged, but if one is damaged, let's say this is damaged, that these still retain their functionality. To do that, you have a support or a support system in the back. I'm going to design a simple one around the O2hd generator, which is, for some reason, eluding my eyes right now. There it is. Temporarily replace that. Now the O2hd generator has 4 conveyor ports. Okay, it's got 2 at one at either end of the long side, and then 2 in the middle there. I'm gonna place this with the 2 on either side facing along the plane here, like so. And then I'm going to armor this space. What this just did, what this just did is it separated the thrusters here from the system supporting them. Now, not only will, if this is destroyed, but the armor protect the rest of this, this could be damaged as well, and the functionality behind here will still be intact. So, in order to further protect these, I'm going to, run a line of blocks like so, and a line of blocks like so. Now, that's not enough O2hd generators to power these thrusters. In fact, I can guarantee it's nowhere near enough. But we can use the small hydrogen tank to connect between them. And with that, this gives us some initial fuel storage. Now, it's not much, but you can then augment it with the large hydrogen tank, which I don't know if there's a conveyor port on the bottom of this thing. Oh yeah, there is. Like so. And these are designed to automatically, the larger hydrogen tanks will line up directly with the thruster. So now we have an engine bank. It's armored. It takes a bit of a punch to get through here. Now this is light armor. Light armor is, frankly, garbage in combat. But you make do with what you got, okay? And right now, what I'm probably going to do is replace some of this with heavy armor when the time comes. And then this will all have a heavy armor sheath around it. So, yeah, it's not the greatest right now, but it will work. And so now this ship has not only redundant fuel generation in the form of the O2hd generators, which converts ice into hydrogen and oxygen, but also has fuel with multiple fuel connection points. So you can then have these conveyor ports connect up as well to add that extra level of redundancy. Right now, the engine banks are self-contained. If I were to add power to this, the O2hd generators would begin filling up our hydrogen capacity. The engines would begin running, we would have power. We're not quite there yet. Like I said, I'm designing the bare bones skeletal aspects of this right now. So let's connect this up over here. There we go. I could probably get away with leaving this section here, light armor, for now. I don't think I'd be able to continue leaving it light armor if this were to actually be prepping to go into combat. But you know, the option is there. So I could add additional armor on top of this, but right now we need to focus on additional systems, and in order to do that, we need to decide on the size of the ship. We've already got the length, now we need to decide on the width. Those engines look extremely small for a ship this size. So let's design something that has an extra bank of wings, or extra bank of thrusters to work with. Probably the best way to do that would be to go from this point. Oh, those are attachment points. To go from this point here forward. Wrong. Oops. Forward about 20 blocks. How does that look? Yeah. I think I'm going to add another 5 blocks to that by creating an angle here. So do that by putting one more at the end and then moving your way out. So that means that I've got 1, 2, 3. This is 4. I said I would do 5, so there's 5. Now we've got a 45-degree angle involved in this before we enter in another bank of systems here. To offset things, which this right now is right along the bottom of the ship, I'm going to raise the next section up by a block. Okay, so it's already going to be a block above this. Now it's going to be 2 blocks offset. That's okay. And then I'm going to do essentially the same thing. I'm going to go this like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I meant to explain this when I was over here, but I kept getting distracted with it. So you've got the 2 blocks in front of the nozzle, and then the thruster itself is 3 blocks. So with this, I can then basically recreate that same setup there, but with just 3 of these thrusters, like so. Let's put the O2hd generator away. I'm not going to be using power for a little bit, so let's make sure that we've got the same orientation of our O2hd generators. And then let's place our armor. So this may look just like a plate. It kind of is, but believe it or not, it's a very useful feature to have in a design. Same thing here. I'm going to use the small hydrogen tank to connect between these, providing yet another layer of conveyor connection, and then the large hydrogen tank gets anchored here. And just like that, I now have a varied thruster block. Okay? To augment this, I'm going to put in a number of secondary support thrusters in the form of ion engines. Now, ion engines use electricity. Swap out the hydrogen engines for now. Use electricity to produce thrust instead of fuel. They're useful to have as well, but in a slightly different capacity. Since we've got this up here as the main thruster bank, I would probably put put the ion engines offset and probably to the sides a bit. So what I'll do is hydrogen engines are 2 blocks wide, so we've got 2. So let's do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Nah. Let's do that. And place blocks like so. That'll allow me put these hydrogen engines there. So that means that not only does this have the hydrogen engines, but now it has ion engines as well to provide it with an extra bit of kick. You can also place in additional thrusters elsewhere. The main reason why I want these here is they will give a good amount of boost to what's already here with the hydrogen engines. And you can turn the hydrogen engines off to save fuel and still be able to maneuver the ship. So, if given enough time, this ship would actually be able to accelerate quite effectively. So, let's basically do the same thing that I did on here. And wow, I'm already jumping around a bit. I apologize. I'm going to, because this is kind of making me a little bit nervous, add in a few extra attachment points. Okay. And then let's run a structural element this way and merge that. So now we've got the main thrusters in the back, we've got thrusters in what will be wings. Let's continue spreading out these wings so we can add in the remaining systems. So, in the case of the ion engines, the best thing to power them in an emergency situation would be batteries. Okay? So, what I would do for these is along the back of each bank of ion engines, or in any smaller ion engine, immediately put a battery behind it. Because no matter what happens to your main power, you will still have power to your engines, even if your reactor is, say, sabotaged. Anyway, speaking of power systems, this is going to be a ship with combat capabilities. I've defined a pretty robust amount of space here for power systems. Okay? Let's use this space for that purpose. Now, I'm going to start here in the middle and run a line of blocks all the way down to that connecting line over there. Why? It just adds in that extra layer of structural element that I quite like, but also gives me more room to work with in the space between the outer hull and what's going to be the engineering section. Okay? Let's run another one down this length. And now this will complete our hull, or this will complete what is essentially our primary hull. So this ship is going to have both a pressure hull and a combat hull. It's very useful to differentiate between the two, because in a combat hull, you're expecting it to take hits, but the pressure hull, you're not. So the pressure hull itself is usually somewhat isolated. Whereas the combat hull, someone can punch a hole through it, and your ship will be like, "Oh, did you damage me?" So, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to connect these two systems here using conveyors. So I'm just going to use the conveyor junction, like so. Okay? Conveyor junctions are a tricky beast. Okay? And I'm going to do the same thing here. Wrong button. And so, conveyor junctions are tricky because of two reasons. One, they do generate lag in your game. And two, you don't really want to have to rely on something, rely on a block like this as your main method of connecting everything up. So having it in critical junction points like this is probably the best. If at all possible, connect up your functional blocks with each other, and use as few conveyors as possible in your design. Every place you put a conveyor is a weak point. Okay, conveyor junctions are a little bit sturdier, but not by much, and not worth the trade-off of the additional lag that they will generate. All right, now we've got our hydrogen system set up here, and our tanks. I think I'm going to add in additional fuel storage just here in the back. Okay, I don't think I'm going to use that the industrial one. I'm just going to draw this back 5. That adds 10 more hydrogen tanks, which just significantly increases the fuel capacity of the ship. These are not going to be the only tanks. There will be tanks elsewhere in the hangars, which will be up front. But the reason why I put this in is it now allows us to define the space that will be the deck engineering it. The engine room is on. That's wrong. Okay? Because these will be partially visible inside the engine room. And will make up a portion of the pressure hull. So, let's do that. Let's try to actually draw those all the way over. And now what I'm doing right now is structural bracing. Okay? By running these lines of blocks this way, I'm adding in extra attachment points to the structural design of this ship. Which is one of the limitations in the game, is that if your structural elements are not comprehensive, you will suffer significant damage if something breaks in the wrong place. Alright, now we have our space that we can put the engine room in, which is, if I turn my jetpack off, come on. There we go. I think I slowed myself down that much. If I turn my jetpack off and I walk into the engine room, this is the site I'm going to be seeing. Okay? There's going to be a reactor assembly on either side. There's going to be the look of the hydrogen tanks in there. There's the industrial feel of everything. I may even add a few more of these tanks in other places to add some extra look to them. As it is, though, this whole area is also going to have its own blast protection in it. Its own way of sealing it off from the pressure hull, but still showing it off, but still allowing it to be visible. The exception will be these areas. Because of the way these hydrogen tanks are designed, they are automatically airtight on the edges which I place blocks. Okay, see how they fill in the space? Now, yes, there is a gap there, a small one, but the game doesn't see it as a gap for airtightness sake. See? That small gap. The game doesn't see it. So you can kind of get around it to a point. I don't think the same is true for the industrial hydrogen tanks, which is okay. These do look pretty cool, though. Alright, now we need to talk about conveyor access and hooking everything up. Cargo access is one of the most important things in any design. Okay? You move cargo with conveyors. So let's place a few more blocks here to anchor that up so that I can then run a conveyor junction out of here. So I could do a number of other blocks, but I don't really need to at this time. Okay, I can also augment this with conveyor junctions in places like this, like so. The reason being is that while this is here, it gives me the option to add in additional conveyor systems and adds in that level of redundancy that I said is just too critical to not include. So we're going to add in a few more conveyor junctions like so, and then run a conveyor all the way along here. Now we have a system that is fully connected up on both sides in the rear assembly. From here we can, and this is one of the things I love to do with reactors, add in just a bit of extra space. And now let's put our power systems in. I'm going to put large reactors, but you need to make sure you line up the conveyors properly. Which, those are lined up. Yep, large reactors with the glowing bulb facing towards the center of the engine room. Now the ship has power, as you can see from the thrusters having activated. 6 large nuclear reactors is a lot of power in vanilla Space Engineers anyway. But now you walk into engineering and this is the site you see. Got this large expansive area with the reactors built right into it. All of this is hooked up, redundant layers and systems within conveyors. The only weak point currently right now is this area in the back. You can get around that with multiple available options. So, with that said though, right now I'm just going to add in a few more design features. Turn the mag boots off. Just to add that extra layer of aesthetics to this. Let's see if I can flip it around the other way. Because I think that will pair much better. And then it will give me an excuse to mirror them like that. So, unfortunately, that does mean that I now need to block off this area. Otherwise, I won't be able to make this area airtight. That's okay. Alright, but that's okay. We now walk into engineering, and yeah, this looks like a proper industrial environment. Now in the back here, I'm going to replace, I'm going to use some glass to make this airtight, but I'm not there yet. So right now, our ship has power. It has the ability to move forward, and it has fuel supply. If I were to throw a control station on this right now and do a test burn, we could probably show off, even though this is creative mode and we have infinite fuel and stuff, it would still be very useful. So let's make sure this is facing the right way. Alright, let's hop in. Oh, come on. I don't remember what the camera option is. That's okay. It's V. Alright. Now this ship is docked right now, so it's not going to go anywhere when I blast all thrusters at maximum rate. But now you can see just how much thrust this ship has. You can also see that it's using 15% of the power generation to activate all the engines right now, and hydrogen supply is staying static at 53%. I'm reasonably sure that if I were to go in, go to all thrusters, and max out the thrust override, and then look at our hydrogen system, I'd see that we're still making more hydrogen than we're burning. Okay? Which means that right now, we are fuel neutral. We are completely fuel neutral. So, and we have, in fact, we have a surplus with the O2hd generator capacity that we have. We're only using 15% of power, and the majority of that's the O2hd generators. But now, if I wanted to, I could launch this ship, and it would basically be a missile. Yeah. So let's go. Select all thrusters, and bring the thrust override back down to normal. So, let's get rid of that for the moment, because that's already shown what we've got here. Okay, so with this redundant setup of extra systems, this ship here is already very robust. No matter what weaponry I put on it, this ship is already capable of holding its own in terms of a race. And if I put armor plating on it right now, it would actually be a pretty effective armored platform. But isn't a ship yet. I intentionally left some space right here open. Okay? Like I said, in order for you to have a proper ship, you need to have both systems to control the ship, which was the control station there, or a way to control the ship, which is the control station there. You could also use a script, and you need a method to control it. Right now, you cannot turn... Okay, come on. You cannot control a ship without gyroscopes. So, let's use the gyroscopes as armor. Let's make sure that they're all facing the right way. And this then allows me to use... Come on. The gyroscopes. So gyroscopes are one of the best armor blocks in the game, and they are extremely functional. The only downside to them is their expense. They are an expensive block. They take a lot of metal grids, steel plates. Yeah. So we've got a parts list here. So they take 600 steel plate and 50 metal grids. That already makes them more durable than a heavy armor block. Okay? Heavy armor blocks take just as many metal grids, but only a quarter of the number of steel plate. And that's the real advantage that they provide. Turn auto rotate off. Now, this is more than enough to maneuver the ship as it is right now. And having them as an extra added bit of armor block, so to speak, is very cool. Now, I'm going to do something fairly similar along this edge as well, though this edge is going to be somewhat less protected. The main reason I put them where I did is it's creating an armor block around engineering, which, as you'll note, still has a space here for me to use for systems, and I do have an intended use for that space. So could have put it up against there, but I think I'm actually going to put a layer of heavy armor, plate or catwalk or something along through that area. But that's all part of the interior design stage. Right now, I'm at the critical system stage. So we've got engines, we've got power production, and now we've got gyroscopes. The gyroscopes are acting in a secondary capacity as an armor. Let's go ahead and close in the floor here of engineering. So this will be completed. Let's go this way. I'm going to add a second layer of plating here because this is a combat design. Okay? And this is just light armor. One of the things that you can very quickly realize about Space Engineers is that light armor is cheap. Use lots of it. I'm leaving these two trenches here because they will actually be very useful for embedding in other systems, as well as running conveyors and connecting up peripheral system setups. The way it's set up right now, if this ship were to have a massive explosion in the engineering section back here, the only thing it would lose is power. It would still have the ability to use its thrusters if it had another power source, which is what we're going to do next. Batteries are an essential aspect of any combat design. Okay? Remember how I said that batteries should be placed in a location adjacent to the ion thrusters? This is why. Allows you to have a secondary power source at each ion thruster bank and an emergency power source for your ship as a whole. So even if all the reactors were to go down, these batteries will keep everything powered for a little bit longer. And even if there's a massive explosion here in engineering, these secondary banks with their own fuel supply, thruster banks, would continue to operate. So here in engineering, I'm also going to add in batteries, and I'm going to do my favorite, which is towers of batteries. There will be batteries in other systems elsewhere, but for the moment, this is the core of the ship's power generation capability. So more systems will be baked into the rest of it, so the redundancy in this design is now visible. However, there's still one key weakness. You could blow this whole back area and you would cut off conveyor connection between the two sections of the ship. So to fix that, we're going to make a conveyor connection between both engineering and the wingtip engine arrays. There really is no simpler way to do this, honestly. I'll just do some armor plating. Cross like so. And that gives you access to here. So I'm going to build in some added redundancy here for structural reasons. Oops. And now we have a conveyor, a way to get the conveyor over here. Let's add in this for just that extra bit there. And it will be something that can be shrouded behind armor plating. So along here, you can do the same thing. So let's run conveyors over from here and make a connection point. So the easiest way to do this is with a... This is one of the unique times where I'm going to use a couple of regular or full conveyor junctions. Alrighty. Auto rotate sometimes can be quite annoying. This will make this particular bit of the design very important to damage if someone were to be attacking the ship. But it's not the only connection point. And that's something I really need to emphasize for combat design. You want as many connection points into the system as possible so they're all interconnected. I do apologize, there really is no faster way to do this with these things. So the reason why I'm having to spin it like that is that the interaction in the controls to spin around an item like a conveyor tube changes every single time its orientation changes. So there's no strict way that those operate together. So now we've got the wings connected up to the engineering section here. You can embed this easily enough in armor and give this connection point a bit more protection. However, it does mean that there's still that one weakness there. To solve that, we're going to run conveyors down the length of the ship here. Easiest way to do that is to replace this block, which won't affect anything structurally, but you should still cover yourself with another conveyor junction block. And then, like so. That allows you to knock these out, and the structure is still intact with you having taken extra precautions. Yes, there is another way that this here could have been done. I did it this way in order to preserve the structural or preserve the integrity of what eventually will be an airtight system. Now, I mentioned that there will be both a combat hull and a pressure hull. Where I am right now with the conduit and where these gyroscopes are, these are in the combat hull. They're not exposed to the space, but they are not necessarily pressurized. Engineering is pressurized, and this is inside the pressure hull. This is actually going to be one of the largest spaces that will be continuously pressurized. There will be larger spaces, but this is the only one that's going to be continuously pressurized because the others will be the main hangar bay. It'll be the hangar bay and its support facilities. So, to connect the conveyor system from here, we have a connection point here. We are going to use this connection point and just simply drag it across. Alright, this gives us a centralized conveyor access. Also allows us to now define what could be a central corridor of the ship, going directly below that, and this could actually have an oxygen tank on it to help with getting everything all, to help with pressurizing the ship. So we're going to run from the bottom of this a line of blocks down to anchor it, because this is also going to get connected up. Remember, redundancy is key. So switch to these. Alright. And now we've got a redundant connection with one point that could fail and another that will be able to continue operations. From here, there will be other connection points as well, but now we can divide the ship into its individual function sectors. Let's zoom out a little bit to show just how big this ship is and how little we've actually gotten done. Yes, we have the drive assembly in place. Yes, we have the power assembly in place. Yes, we have what would otherwise be a functional ship, except for the fact it can't slow down. But we're not even close to being done here. We have a total of, what is that? 14 hydrogen thrusters as our main thrust point. We need to start planning about how the ship is going to slow down. We need to plan how the ship is going to maneuver, be able to go up and down. To do that, we need secondary thruster banks. These thruster banks are going to be built off of the hydrogen tanks here and be embedded in the wings. They will point up and down, and there will be several pointing left and right. So to do that, though, we're going to need to, one, these batteries, we're never really going to need to access them. They're going to be okay, completely fine, embedded in armor block. Reason being is that if this area gets destroyed, our grinder will easily get us in and out however many times we need. Let's run another line of blocks like so. Build that up. And then we can, for starters, I need hydrogen thrusters here. Starting off of this bank here, we can continue backing on like that, but let's do this instead. Okay, that allows us to place a few hydrogen thrusters like so. Now these aren't hooked up to anything, and unlike the main banks, they're going to have a bit less in terms of their support systems. That said, they're still going to have them. They're just going to be in a very different configuration. So let's use this type of design here with the O2hd generators connecting on the sides, and then between them our hydrogen storage. I hit the wrong button. There we go. There. And then I can use an O2hd generator to connect that up. So first I'm going to run a line of blocks to make sure that this is secure, because currently the only thing anchoring it in was this block. I can then delete that and finish the system here. Which, to finish it, is going to be a conveyor to connect everything up, and another O2hd generator to connect that up. And that's not a conveyor I put in, it's a sorter. But I put this in here so I can make changes like that and not have this section just suddenly fall off, and that one will be broken because it's mirroring, and yeah. So now we have hydrogen thrust on this side of the ship. I think I'm going to run this line of blocks all the way across as an added bit of structural and armor support. Do the same thing here and on the lower edge. Alright. Reason being is that this has now created another redundant block. It doesn't have the same amount of armor potential, but getting shot in the side is much less common than a ship shooting at you from behind. So, now the ship can maneuver left and right. It can accelerate, but it can't go up and down. That's where the next bit of trickery, I guess is the best way to phrase it, comes in. So, maneuvering left and right is a simple thing, really. Okay? There's... Oh my god, conveyor connection. Sorry, talking to myself real fast while I conveyor connection, dual connection up there. Okay. Just making sure that I'm okay blocking off that particular conveyor port, which I am. Do that, and then for each of these, I'm going to put in a full conveyor. And then along the back here, I can run more as needed, but I don't think I'm going to need to. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to need to. So, in the back section of the wings here, how I'm going to design this is as much of this thruster is going to be recessed as possible. So, that means that it's going to pretty much start here. Didn't place the block. There we go. It's going to start there, and I think I'll put 4 facing upward, and then from here I can build in another bank facing downward in a slightly different shape, because I want the front section of the wings to be a bit different. However, to do that I need to have a different anchor point, because while these are recessed, they won't be recessed much, and I want the ones below to be recessed at least as much, if not more. So to do that, run a line of blocks across, because these thrusters are very likely only going to have about a single layer's worth of armor block protecting them. It's not much. Okay? Now, there will be other defenses in the area, but that's not going to be much for these. I don't want to put in redundant systems for them either, because they will have the redundant systems of the main hydrogen tanks here, the O2hd generators, and everything to run off of. So for the other ones I'm going to be placing, though, they will need redundant systems. So I need to make sure that I leave at least a block's worth of space before I anchor these on. And that means there. Then I'm going to run this in a straight line 5 blocks across. See, now these thrusters are taking up the same amount of space, but I can embed the ones down here a bit more. The reason for that is in between it is going to be the hangar space. I want to make sure there's as much protection in this area as possible for them. Run some extra lines of blocks for structural support, and then anchor them all together like so. To connect them up to the conveyor system, we're going to use this space in here for redundant systems. So, oops, wrong block, or wrong button. Alright. I've got all the space to work with down here and up here. So let's use this opportunity to show off just how versatile the O2hd generator is as a block. I could get it to rotate properly because I need it to face that way and then down. Okay. I can then run O2hd generators along this entire length. This will provide not only redundant system support for those hydrogen thrusters that I just added that face upward, but it will also add an extra line of conveyors connecting these up. I can then flip that around to do that. And with that, we've created a redundant system of hydrogen's fuel management and development. Now, there's not going to be a whole lot of fuel storage in this area, but this is going to be the powerhouse that keeps all of the hydrogen tanks and the eventual hydrogen engines that will be in here functional. I've just mentioned a block that wasn't previously used, and there's a reason. It wasn't previously mentioned, and there's a reason for it. Hydrogen engines are finicky. Okay? They are one of the best secondary power supplies to have, but they are expensive. The place I'm going to put several of them is behind these thrusters. They can be turned on and off as needed. I think I can flip a few more in here. But we'll provide a purely hydrogen-based power supply to this section of the ship, which is very, very advantageous to have. So you can also turn them on and off as needed. So I'm going to take all the hydrogen engines, though, and turn them off for now. They don't need to be running. And with that, we've packed systems into this frame. Now, this is a fairly large ship. I will admit that. But the way it's set up right now, we now have the ability to build a much more functional and capable ship with this. With the effort put into and the design idea behind all this, there's just so much more that can be done that previously wouldn't have really been as beneficial, is now fully capable. Alright, now we're going to run a line of blocks like that real fast, and we're going to run blocks like this. To add some additional protection in this area and function support, I'm going to embed some batteries on the inside edges here. Just a few, you don't need much. And then I'm also going to use the attachment points in this area to put more gyroscopes. Reason for that is gyroscopes are such a versatile block. Now, this ship, attempting to build the ship in survival would be painful. It truly would. But just from the sheer expense of the resources involved. But if anyone was able to do it, or any group was able to do it, this ship would prove invaluable in its overall capabilities. So I've just packed in more gyroscopes in this area. This area could take a few hits before critical systems get damaged. And if some areas do get damaged, others will be protected from damage spreading. And let's do that. So now this may look blocky, and that's one of the things that Space Engineers unfortunately kind of has to contend with on a regular basis, is much of its builds looking blocky. That's okay at the moment. This can all be hidden behind other design aspects. So now we've put in hydrogen thrust in the port and starboard directions and up and down. Now we need to do ion thrust. Ion thrust is stupid easy to put in. Okay? You don't have to worry about connecting it to conveyors. You don't have to worry about maintaining power for it. So for this system, I'm just simply going to put in I want to let me put it where I need to put it. Okay. Oh. I'll just run a line of blocks down here. It's easiest. That's the easiest of the available options there. It wouldn't let me anchor it where I wanted to anchor it, which was here. Just to have this stick up just a little bit. Because these actually will be relatively cool to have sticking out of the side of the ship. Okay? I can then use this framework here, that they've formed here, to build a pair of embedded thrusters in the sides of the wings. Then, because I will have all the extra space to work with along the bottom here, I can simply run a pair of large ion thrusters adjacent, like so. Now the ship has full ion and hydrogen thrust in every direction except to slow down. And that's okay. Because, because the main thrusters to slow down are going to be very much a tricky design. Okay? But they're going to be in the forward section of the ship, so we're not there yet. Streaming about an hour. Let's see. Yeah. Just catching up on a couple of things. Alright. Now, inside this ship, I will be putting refineries, I will be putting assemblers, all the relevant support items for a combat support ship. Okay? all the relevant function items for a combat support ship. Now you want to go into your ship every so often and find these little nooks and crannies and fill them in. The fewer empty spaces you have, the better. A couple are okay, you don't want many. Now in this space, because we've got the ion thrusters, I'm going to remove this block and I'm going to put a cargo container here. So this may seem like an odd choice, but the next block I put in here will make perfect sense for it. And that's going to be a small reactor. Oh, that's a large one. We put a small reactor here, and let's angle them like so. There we go. We've got a couple of small reactors here. This whole assembly now will generate its own power, will have the battery backup, and its own hydrogen capacity. Meaning now we've got the main power in the back, we've got a redundant power and hydrogen system on the sides here. This ship, every layer of redundancy added to it is another layer of survivability the ship will have. Now, unfortunately, because these are going to be along the top, these are somewhat exposed. So this area is going to get a special attention in terms of armor. Specifically, it's going to get the first few pieces of heavy armor I'm going to use. So, which I'm going to put some heavy armor along here, like so. Another strip like so. And then put these along here. Now this is only along the top. And I'm also putting some here to add a little bit of design flair to the whole thing. There. Now that adds a bit of design flair, but also there's a plate, bang, a massive plate between this area and the outside. To further protect it, I'm going to encase the entire thing in heavy armor blocks, like so. And probably run a line of heavy armor this way, just to add the extra layer of redundancy, and completely enclose it. Yes, it looks blocky. Yes, it will be difficult to get to, because in order to get to it from the outside, you're going to need to basically go up and through here, and then work on it from here, and if there's damage, you're going to have to grind away blocks. But that's okay. If this area is badly damaged enough where you need to do that, the rest of the ship is probably also taking a lot of damage. Unless you're unlucky enough and a meteor just happened to impact exactly the spot. I'm going to run a line of armor blocks along here, just to give another layer of structural, like the two lines, of structural support there. So, with that, we've got those two functional systems in place. We've got a semblance of a pressure hull here. Let's close it off now. Now, a pressure hull is always a fairly flimsy thing. You don't want it to be heavy, you don't want it to be expensive to maintain. You want it to be as simple as possible. Okay? So let's do that goes over here. So pressure hull continues this way. So, and I don't know what I'll put back here, but there will be a passageway that goes back there, so I'll probably put an airlock there. Let's run a line of blocks this way. I think I'll just make this like a little access way, the back here. But there's not really room or space to put anything else. So, let's say knock out some batteries, which I could do that, but yeah. And on the back of the battery bank here, I'm also going to add a little bit more armor. It's not needed, but it doesn't hurt. Okay? And that's the advantage of this type of design, is having a primary combat hull and a pressure hull gives you a space between where blocks will deform. That's why I put the heavy armor here, because blocks will still deform onto this and will still damage blocks on the other side unless you have a gap. Well, if you can't maintain a gap like that, then what you need to do is you need to have extra sturdy blocks in there. Alright. But with that said, we now have an area defined for the rear sections. Now we need the hangars. Okay? To finish off the hangars, I'm going to run a line of blocks forward a bit from here. So I get to about... Actually, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. Okay. That'll give me a little bit more width to work with, and I think I'll do another whole line of blocks for that. Because this back area is already going to be kind of flat, so I figured I'd carry the wings forward a little bit before I taper them in. And the reason I'm doing this is I need to make sure I can structurally mount this before I start cutting holes into it for the hangar space. So, yeah, let's, from here, that's 3 blocks. Let's go forward 9? No. 19. Yeah, there we go. And now we can narrow and taper the ship quite a bit. So, and for that, this is going to be a simple enough taper. So I'm not using any modded blocks in any of this. This is all base blocks. It would be nice because there's the 1x1x4 slopes that you can find in some mod packs. I hate it. Alright. Alright, this is still there. Let's just try that. Let's see how that looks. Let's see. Sure, I can see that. And then we'll extend this a bit. And from there, that defines the rest of the hull. A little bit more. There we go. That's much better. And now this looks more natural, and I will make that straight edge just so. There's more that's going to go in here, but now I can connect everything up. So, all right. Now we get to one of the first really complicated elements of this design. Okay, there we go. And that's the hangar. The hangar is this ship's primary support feature. Okay? Most likely the best way to position the hangar is to have it just inside the combat hull periphery that will be defined by this, but have a space between for a pressure hull. So let me show you what that will look like. That. here. And there we have a combat. We have next to the phase. We have a separation available now for pressure hull versus a combat hull. So 3, and let's run this. Let's do 4. Let's do 4. So there's 3 blocks in between, and I can run something down the middle of it easily enough. Okay. Just like in Minecraft, in Space Engineers, you need to plan for the various spaces that you will have, which I think that is going to be what the pressure hull running through this area. Just a simple 1 block area hallway with maybe some larger spaces in it, but it's not going to be much. Okay, that allows us to then run blocks this way. Like so. And now we have a separation between this assembly and the space that will become the hangar. So an important thing to remember when designing a hangar in Space Engineers is that you have a lot of options available to you for what you can and can't add to it. So since there's this separation here, I can actually have a bit of a drop occur and have this space, or have the I left this here so I could make a transition period, or transition area. But there's going to be storage on one side, and the main drop will be elsewhere. So let's run. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down. That should connect up here. Nope. I think I deleted that one. Need to go down one more. And there, that connects up like so. This now is going to be used to define the outer limit of what will be the hangar, or the rearmost limit of what will be the hangar here. Alright, and then I'm going to run a line of blocks this way. Now, there will be more passages and whatnot above the hangar. I'm just trying to define how big the hangar will be. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 blocks tall. Very workable. Very, very workable. So you can have your fighter. Drop position 1. And like so. So that tells me that's the area that I can use for that. I think the way I'll set this up is to have probably a total of 4 drop doors in that area. So that will give me a really large amount of capacity for launching things. Now, unfortunately, that does mean that this is going to have to be a fully depressurizable space. So that's why I had to carefully control and plan out where everything will go. Now, as this is a support ship, it's going to have not an insignificant number of secondary craft. 2. Let's see. That's 3. That's 2. Let's run this a total of 13 blocks this way, and then we'll start moving it into taper. And then we can have an upper section over here that will be an additional area that is a part of the hangar space. We can have more places. So we've got 2. That's 15 blocks. So let's do. Like so. Already inside that particular taper there, so at the moment I'm just creating what is going to be a unique aspect to the hangar bay, the bulge of the hangar bay on the bottom, I should say. I think that's going to be good, so we'll just keep tapering this forward until we get to here. Then we'll round it. Alright. Now I can cut out this whole section here of blocks that I don't need, which the easiest way to do that is this. There we go. So I cut a hole through the keel so I can now plan out how this is going to go. I will put blocks back for that. I guess I kind of didn't really need to cut out the keel, but what's done is done. You can work around it from there. So what I have envisioned for this is it's also going to have a special warfare suite. So it's going to have, especially in the forward section, secondary systems to launch missiles or to launch a probe, deploy sensor arrays. There's a lot of things that you can design in Space Engineers and then put them on a platform that's to deploy them. And this ship should be great for deploying all these things. I mean, we could even use its hangar bay for storing of defense platforms. Use it as, you know, a siege command ship. So you go into a system, you're defending it from alien race laying siege to it. There's a lot of opportunity and directions you can take things. So. One second, I've been receiving a message on something I have to respond to real fast. Alright. So, with that in mind, we now have the pressure hull here, which is going to have kind of an access space that we can work with here to spread around and to have the crew in that section move around as needed. But for the moment, we need to define the scale of the hangar bay. And I figured I'd do that by having this portion that is dropped down be a bit, or this portion be a bit dropped down. And then that'll allow us to have the extra hangar space in these areas over here. So to properly do this, we need to extend the combat hull over. Probably like so. Give some proper room in there for support systems, as well as to have all the relevant space in this area be useful for a pressure hull. And we can have more storage and other things and whatnot in the wings here. We could even have, and I probably will do this, side access hangars. So you could just fly in on this side into what will be the hangar bay space that I'm now defining. So that's the combat hull for that. Then we need to use that and build off of this what our hangar bay will be. And the easiest way to do that is like so. Probably 4 blocks is enough. More than enough space. Okay? That will mean that I can have hangar doors along the edges here. So let's extend this all the way over. Like so. And I think I'm going to leave it with that kind of a taper there, because I can do something similar on top. to give it just the slopes that would be useful. And then we can have kind of embedded in here access to the hangar. We could have doors on this side, so the whole thing could have multiple layers of functionality embedded in it. With that said, though, let's not add random blocks in places, please. Let's pull this across to actually there. Let's have that extra little bit there. And then we'll bring this over. And I think I can get away with this. Wrong button. Yeah, I can get away with that. And now we have a side hangar for ships to be stored in. And then over here can be 2 storage bays, which ships can get slotted into and then just docked for extended period of time. Extended periods of time. So let's also define those bays. Since this is going to have the ability to depressurize, I'm going to need to do that. Yeah. Let's drag this across twice more. It's a random block. Wasn't mirrored. Oh. Okay. And let's, oops, bring this across to here. So we can now put in doors for side launch and recovery, and we can have areas for dropping ships as needed. Now we need to have areas to store the ships. While having this large hangar bay space will be useful, a lot of the space is going to be used on a regular basis, so that's something you need to be careful with in your designs. You're going to be routinely using space for moving things around, and currently there's no conveyor or cargo storage to this area, so it's something we have to be careful with. This part's always the worst. Alright, so we could just have ships sitting here, but that's not very space efficient, okay? And since we have the passageway that can go across over the top here, I think we might as well use this space for what we've got available for it. So I'm going to add blocks along here to finish out this area. Alright. And that will allow me to place... I should probably just do that. Yeah. That will allow me to place the storage hangar over here. Yeah. Which I'll just do that along here and go about 10 blocks deep. Doesn't need to be much. And about 6. 6 by 10 is enough for... There's plenty of room for a good-sized storage bay. Then we go over here, connect it there. Drag this across a couple times. And let's put in a floor. See, and it's... There we go. Throw that in. Now we've got this storage bay here, and we can put in another one, or what I think I'm going to do is just leave the 2 as it is, and have them, or have the 2 as it is, and have another one kind of angled off of this space. So let's go 8 blocks. Let's define that. Oops. And then let's go another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like so. And that's perfect, actually. It ended up actually being perfect. There we go. So this storage area now is 2, and it's a raised storage area versus the rest. So we have side launch area, we have a vertical drop area, we have storage and ship moving space. I'd say that this is actually coming along very nicely. Let's then drop this to there. And with this, we can now have pressurized areas as well as combat areas separate from the main hangar here. In the front here of the main hangar, I'm going to place some blocks like this, and then a cargo container. And I'm going to probably put I'm definitely going to put a large cargo container in this space. Now, large cargo containers, access point in here. We have one major oversight at the moment. Oops, place a block there. And that there is no conveyor access inside this hangar bay. That's okay. That's okay. Let's finish off this space here. So we can put the hangar doors in. Now, pro tip if you're using hangar doors, so do that by pressing N. So orient these so that they're in a useful, or in the functional orientation. And then run them across here. Stop. Find a computer access point. Now, computer access points are on the sides of most functional blocks. Okay, so there's one right there. This is a computer access point. Ah, why the heck is the sun shining right through like that? Okay. Now, turn off showing the blocks in the terminal. And then you can close the doors. And they will close as a group in unison without you having to play with anything. Alright. Now we're going to do the same thing for the interior door. Alright. Same concept. Exact same concept. Run a line of hangar doors across. Run a doll. Block group. I don't know why I put the T in there. Save. Show them in the terminal, no. And now we've got port side inner and outer doors. Let's close the inner door now. And now we've got it closing like it's properly supposed to. Now, if I did this mirroring, it would have put all of the doors on both sides, and it would have been a royal pain. This way, doesn't do that. Saves you that little bit of extra headache, which you know you don't need. Alright, let's there we go. Make sure these are ready. Computer access point. Oh, come on, there we go. This is the starboard side. Outer door. Save. Don't show the terminal and close them. And now they're closing. Now we have a starboard outer door. Let's add the interior door. Oops. Not what I wanted to do. Like so. Same procedure. And close them. Then we go here and we can see our groups at the very top of the list. Port side, starboard side, inner and outer doors. If you look at that, the doors are now closing. The doors are sealed. To finish off this space, we should run a line of blocks along here. Whoa. Before you do that, make sure to turn mirroring back on. Otherwise, it will make this whole process a headache. Let's drag it across and put the blocks in. And the blocks should show up in there. So now we've got side launch doors, and we can put in the vertical launch doors as well once we define their spaces. I think I can put a total of 4 in easily enough. So now the ship is starting to come together and show a bit more of its interior functional spaces. It's a good thing. That is a really cool thing, though, that we can do this with the game. There's no limitation on us doing this how we see fit. I'm just going to add some additional structural elements in here. And then this can all be run across the top over here. So there will be a little bit of extra space on the inside of these rooms. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. Should be okay. Now, these long expanses of flat armor plate look terrible. I agree. Okay? But they serve a purpose. At the moment, the purpose is to mark off sections that we have, for the most part, finished. Pretty much the only thing that's left in those sections would be how those areas get pressurized and depressurized for launch. Otherwise, each time they open the doors, you're expending oxygen into the space. Well, let's go ahead and open those doors real fast. Oh wow, we're all the way at the bottom. Open. 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 And open. Okay. They're all opening now. Which allows us to see in here. And allows us to go over here to our nearest conveyor access point, which is conveniently in this space. So we've got a little bit of area here. Let's tear those out. Run a conveyor. Now this is a non-critical conveyor, okay? This conveyor will be accessible, will not be something that anyone will struggle to locate. Okay? So with that in mind, redundancy isn't really all that necessary. It's easily repaired. So it's not a critical functional system. Alright. Now, along here, I'm going to run... wrong thing. I'm just going to run a line of conveyor junctions, and then a line of vents. So Now, these will do that, but in order to make this system not constantly struggling, I'm going to have to put in some oxygen tanks. Now, these oxygen tanks are going to go along here that will contain all the oxygen for that. However, to prevent them from being filled up, I need to have a method of controlling what goes in and goes out. Ideally, that would be a command block, or not a command block, a programmable block for scripting. But the way that I'm going to do this is it's simply going to be a set amount of oxygen that is allowed in, and then nothing else. So, and it doesn't pump back out to anything else. So the easiest way to do that is to have your oxygen tanks, like so, break your conveyor line so they don't fill up, and then put a sorter here that prevents them from pumping air back through. Is that perfect? No. But it will prevent air from being flowing in unless you need to. Okay? So let's use a sorter. And the air is going to pump out but not flow in. Okay? Let's go here. Since this is one way, we don't really need to change anything right now. But you can go into... You can go in here to its system and allow it to let things through. But at the moment, the only thing it needs to do is prevent anything at all from flowing through unless it's needed. And then you put an O2hd generator in here, and you do not, which the most likely place where I'd put it is right here. Yeah, most likely place I'd put it's there. And then don't put any ice in it until you need to. So, actually, the more I think about it, it should be as accessible as possible. So let's throw an O2hd generator right there. And then turn it off. Fuck off. That'll allow these tanks to remain relatively empty and allow the depressurization to occur as it needs to. Yeah. Which, yeah, it started to fill, it's at 63% and then it stopped. Alright. And now we have the ability to depressurize those two areas. But we still would need the ability to depressurize the main bay itself. For that, we're going to create a virtually identical system for this, but we're going to run it in a different part, or different area. And we're going to do this simultaneously with connecting conveyors up along the main spine here. So we've got the conveyor here. This is going to lead itself to a main conveyor line running along the top of the ceiling here. So let's do that real fast so you can see what that will look like. So yeah, that'll work. Okay. And then come on. But this may get replaced for something else in the future. I'm not certain yet. So to control this system, I'm going to use a conveyor junction here to connect everything, and then the rest is just going to be a conveyor line running the length of the bay up until about here. No, actually, I think I'll run this out. I'll run this in a different area. Why? I just don't want it to be visible. Now, one moment, please. Alright, sorry about that. I ordered lunch and it just arrived. Alright, we're going to do the same thing for this one that we did for the other one. okay, which we're going to have the conveyor sorters prevent blocks or prevent anything from flowing into this area. Then we're going to run a line of conveyor junctions, like so. And then on this side of the conveyor junction, we're going to put our oxygen tank. And for this system, it's going to be a little bit more robust in the storage capacity because of the sheer amount of oxygen that's going to be containable in this space. I think I might replace that for the O2hd generator, actually. But we're also going to still put in an O2hd generator. So go in, turn it off. Turn the one on the other side off. So that the O2 tanks don't fill up too much. And then put in 2 more. Now, the reason why I chose this setup like I did was for the vents. The more vents you have, the more effectively the room can be depressurized. So if you put a lot of vents along this face and along the bottom of it, it's an efficient use of space. So let's do that real fast. And we even have this one in here where we can do a vent, but that will depressurize the rest of the room. That can, however, be kind of like a backup system. So I'll leave it in for now. Then we'll do that. And then to hide these, because they do glow a bright green, and it is an annoying green. There we go. Let's just put some armor plate on there. There we go. And now that's hidden. And this whole thing can then be further covered up and hidden if needed. You can also access the inventory as needed to put more, because this technically acts as an inventory access point. So you can refuel the system if need to maintain it. But that should allow the hangar to properly depressurize when the main hangar itself needs to. For most operations, the side hangars can be used as needed. But the rest of it here, if you need to launch a lot of ships for combat operations or recover a lot of complex stuff, having that ability baked into the system is very beneficial. So, I appreciate everyone for tuning in, and I do appreciate the thought. Right now, I'm actually just had lunch. I'm just about ready for lunch, and I'm really hungry, so I'm going to call it for the moment. But yeah, so here we have Phase 1 progress. First stream on a theater combat operations command ship. Let's see how much more we can get done in another session next weekend, everybody. But in the meantime, thank you for tuning in. This has been Wolfe, and have a good day.